Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by once again. I appreciate it. So if you're new to this channel, I'll give you a brief, let me adjust my headphones, sorry about that. Let me give you a brief rundown of what we're looking at. Again, guess I sound like a broken record, but it's my belief after looking at Google Earth for quite some time that our land is comprised of parts and body parts of creatures, once dead, alive creatures, and I'm pretty sure they're not alive. I mean, some of them may be, but I don't know. So, what we're looking at right now, you can see at the very top here. This is Japan. This is the coast of Japan, but that is not really what I want you to focus on. I want you to look at exactly off of the coast of Japan and this shape that we have here. And notice right here where my cursor is, where the mouse is, look at this unique pattern that's coming off of the tip of this, whatever this is. So if you were to see this shape laying on the ground, being a human, you would want to inspect that. You wouldn't just assume it's a rock or it's just a pile of dirt and you would just step over. So just again, just for a moment, shrink this down because this is about 1,700 miles long, ladies and gentlemen, from or one person that's watching this. From this tip to Japan is about 1,700 miles. And I can't use my Google Earth Live because, oddly enough, now that I'm making videos, Google Earth just will not cooperate with me and this computer. I mean, it used to be fine, but now, as far as making videos, it freezes up, it locks. I can't really do anything. So it takes a while to even for me to get these pictures because my computer and Google Earth just at some point they just decided not to cooperate, and I just find it strange. I guess I need to get a newer computer though. But anyway, if you see this laying on the ground, this shape right here laying on the ground, if you shrink this down right now in your mind and you see that laying on the ground, as a human you would want to inspect it. As a human you would want to look at it a little closer because it looks like a part of something. This to me, I always called it a fishtail, but I don't know that it's an actual fishtail. I don't know what it is, but I do know that it has an organic feel to it and it has an organic shape to it. And when I look at it, it just seems, my core just tells me, hey, that's an animal, or that used to be something that was alive, because that's what we have as humans. We have that ability to see animals and that ability to see things laying on the ground because we're scavengers by nature and we originally are lived in nature much more than we did, so we had to be very aware of things around us. So if you just look at this, it looks to me like a tail of a fish or a lobster or something, but even this could even be a head because if you look right here, look at these little serrated points that almost look like teeth or look like something inside of a claw of an animal, and look at this curve. And this is really interesting, this one little part right here. See, this is the thing about looking at these things. I find that the big uh, parts are very interesting, but sometimes on these big parts there are really tiny things that just stand out. For one, again, look at this structure right here. You have, it seems to obviously be connected to this, and then there's like one, two, three, um, I don't know what you would call these things that are just coming off of the tip of this. Almost like when you see these deep sea eels and deep sea fish where they have like a little glowing thing hanging off of their face or by their mouth or something. They have like these things to attract other creatures, other animals to them so they can eat them. But again, like I don't know what this is, but it looks to be a part of something. It looks to be organic. Just like if I was in the woods and I saw a clump of fur. I don't know where that fur came from, but I know it came from an animal. If I see a bone, I don't know where that bone came from or who was the original owner of that bone or what was, but I know it's an animal. If I see a piece of something, I can look and say, oh, well, this has been something that's decomposed and stepped on and smashed, but it's still something, whatever it is. So that's what the feeling I get when I look at all of these things. and it's just too odd to have these shapes all over the world, and they just be land and rock and dirt, which is what mainstream geology would have us believe, that this is just something that the earth made just with moving water and rain. And I lived off of the beach. I lived off of Lake Michigan on both sides in Michigan and Chicago. I was on the beach, in the beach, a lot. I was always in streams and rocks and rivers. I always was in nature. So seeing rocks and seeing formations is nothing new to me. I mean, I know how water shapes the land and shapes rocks and everything. I mean, I was around the beach all day, but this right here to me does not say, well, the waters just shaped this some kind of way, or some volcano shaped this. So whatever this was an impression that's left by whatever was laying there. And whatever was laying there most likely dissolved. Or, it could be that this is underneath the ocean floor and you're seeing it, the protrusions stick up through the floor. So I'm not sure if this is actual indentation left or if this is the actual part that's left. It could be either or with these things. So let's look a little closer to this and let's kind of look at some detail. Now, for those of you who have fished or do like fishing or know what a fish looks like, when you look up close to this, you kind of see a scaly pattern, right? You see this pattern on this right here? You see that you don't see that same pattern, that same kind of wavy pattern right here, which is between the fins. You see the wavy pattern right here, and you don't see the wavy pattern, which is right here, which is laying outside of this body of whatever it is. You see the wavy pattern, the scale-like, skin-like structure. Right next to it, you don't see that. And I find these little things interesting too. And I'm not quite sure. This was a part of something to this, I believe. So, and we've all seen sturgeon and things that have these type of uh, ridges on their skin. So now again, I said I want to talk about this right here, and this is really interesting because it looks sharp to me. It looks like a very sharp uh, point to me, and so I don't know if again. And then we have these. Now you have to remember these little rocks, these rock formations, they're pretty big, but I mean from this angle, looking above down, they look small, but these are pretty big. These are pretty big, and they look like they are sharp or were sharp, and they just came out and they were inside this structure. And the end of the structure is again like this tip. And if you look on the other side of this tip right here, there seems to be again like spikes or something that seem to be coming out of this that have now eroded away. So when you look at this, you see skin pattern, you see scale pattern, you see a bony structure, you see all these things. So this to me would point to the fact that something was once laying there, or something was once there or it eroded away, or it's underneath. But this is the indentation or the impression of something. So I want to pull up another picture here. This again is what I find interesting. And, this is off of the coast of Canada, the Arctic Ocean. This is, not too far from Greenland and Iceland. It's up there way, way, way off of Canada. So when you look at this, you automatically see again this unique symmetry. Like, okay, you've got this piece over here, right? And directly across from it, you have another piece. You've got this over here, right? And you see how this kind of is a gap. Directly across from this gap is another one, you know. And look at this, what looks to be like a tail almost. Look at that. And this all was connected. So let's look at this right here. This, if you look at it, looks to be something. If you saw this shape laying on the ground, again, let's say this was 6 feet, and you saw this laying on the ground and it had this opening right here, right? Like kind of like a stingray mouth or, one of those type of mouths, and it had a fin right here and another, or whatever this is. I call it a fin, but I don't really know what it is. I just do know that this stands out to be organic. This is just not like a rock just laying here. So look at this tail almost. And this looks to be organic. And there's a bunch of stuff off of the coast of Canada, by the way. Oh, guys, all this stuff. Like even this piece right here, I'm going to go into this in more detail at some point and flip it around. But this is really interesting. But right now, just look at this. Look at this thing right here. What is that? What is that? Reminds me of Michigan. I grew up in Michigan. Reminds me of the hand in Michigan, the thumb, and maybe Michigan is literally a hand. And I know that when you say that, or when I hear myself say that, it's just kind of it's hard to hear it because it's so out of the range of what we've been taught. But again, here's like a Michigan shaped hand, and this looks to be skin. This looks to be uh, the surface of something. So let me see. I want to pull up another picture here, guys. Bear with me. Let's see. No, I don't think I saved it. But anyway, let me go to another picture. Now, this picture right here, again, I found interesting. Now, I said that this looks like a sunfish, right? Because if you know what a sunfish looks like, and if you look them up, this is really, really close to what a sunfish looks like. I mean, it is the same spot where the eye, a certain type of sunfish, the fin, another fin back here, another fin. So I showed this to someone one time, a couple, and the girl, her response was, "Well, that doesn't look like a sunfish to me. It looks like a giraffe head to me. So, therefore, I don't think." This is real. And I'm like, why? She said, well, you said it was a sunfish, and I said it's a giraffe head. Okay, I don't care what you see when you look at this, but you do see something organic. If I see a fish and you see a giraffe head, fine. See your giraffe head, I'll see my sunfish. We both can agree that this looks to be something organic. And that's the whole point of this film, lady. I'm sorry, these videos, sir, the one person watching these videos, is that we have. If you saw, again, let's shrink this down to 4 feet, 3 feet. If you saw that shape land on the ground, you would stop and you would inspect it. Why? Because something inside your human brain, something inside your human soul says, organic shape. And we just are drawn to organic shapes and we want to look stuff out. It's just what we do. So if you saw something like this land on the ground, and I haven't looked at this picture to the point. I just noticed this where this could be the eye right here, or maybe a brow, or even up here, this could be the nostril, or even this could be the eye. Who knows what this thing looked like when it was out and about? But it's here. So again, I had someone, and the fact that I called it a fish and the fact that she called it a giraffe head was problematic. And I'm like, okay, well, call it whatever you want to call it. So any of these shapes you see, ladies and gentlemen, as long as you see something organic, like I know I do, then it can be, if you say this is a claw and not a tailfish, it could be a claw. If you say this is a snake like creature that's split open, okay, it's a snake like creature that's been split open. I'm not trying to argue with anybody. What I am saying though is that there are parts all over this world that seem to be parts of creatures that we're living on top of. So to address the size issue, and I am aware of the muscular, mechanical, skeletal restraints of creatures and things in size. Like, I believe I said this in the last video, maybe I said it in the last video, but like if you get a spider and you blow the spider up to the size of a house, the spider can't move because its design is not that to be that big. The design would have to be vastly different. Even a human can be tall. We've had 8 feet, 9 feet people, and taller people and giants. But when you get on the scale of things that are thousands of miles long, people totally dismiss it because it's like it's out of the realm of abilities for these things to move. And I don't think that's the case. I think that a lot of these things, whatever they are, have they're very thick, number one. So the skin on these creatures, imagine the skin on these creatures. Imagine the skin on these creatures and imagine just the system that runs through these things. Like this thing right here. You know, this head is, and this little dot right here and this little ear I drew when I was originally messing with Google Earth. And these things are like permanent features on my Google Earth for some reason now. So just disregard this and this little dot. But anyway, you know, you see the eye here, you see the nose, you see this horn coming off of its head, you see all of these veins and all of these things running through the skin and the features of this creature. So, if this creature has skin that's several miles thick, if it has a system running through it to pump and deliver all of this fluid, blood, and whatever it is to keep these things moving, it's totally possible that these things could be around and in our realm or whatever this realm is, you know. And who knows if they were brought here? Who knows if this was a burial site? Who knows if this is a burial ground for these giant things? I don't know what this world is. I know what we've been told, and I know that science and religion both have one thing in common. What what the physicists call physics and what the religious man calls God, neither of them are to be disobeyed. So the religious people have their holy texts and science have their holy equations, and both are absolute, and there is no room for debate or argument. If you're outside of the religious belief, you're wrong to the religious people. If you're outside of the scientific belief, you're wrong to the scientific people. And I understand it, but still, I think that man knows some things. I don't think man knows everything. I think man has figured out some things. I don't think man has figured out everything in 2019. I certainly don't think that man has figured out exactly how this world came to be and where everything formed and how it formed. I just don't believe it. So science would tell me that I'm not looking at a body part. Religion would probably tell me I'm not looking at a body part. You know, although this is a giant fish. So I don't. I guess Jonah. This thing could have swallowed Jonah if it was swimming around. But even if you stood this thing up, right, it would stick outside of the ocean. So this was not swimming or moving in the ocean. And I think that our oceans again are to dissolve these things. I think that's what the ocean is. That's what the ocean is doing. The ocean is slowly but surely dissolving everything we see, everything that we call land. Even here, this is the west coast of America right here. This is, I don't remember what state. I try not to, I don't look at the borders and everything because when you look at the borders on the world and on Google Earth, you get used to looking at things being separated. So, of course, you don't see this pattern if you're constantly looking at the state borders and everything because it's broken up. But once you take the state borders off, you see these things clearly all over the world, everywhere. And not just some places. I'm talking the whole world is littered with these things. And the ocean floor seems to be. Take a sandbox. We've all played with the sandbox. Now, you've had toys buried in your sandbox, and there may be a little car sticking out, it may be a little shovel sticking out, it may be a little rock sticking out, a little toy bug sticking out of your sandbox. And um, if the sandbox, if it rains or if it floods or whatever, you know, some of that sand, that top sand is going to be washed away, and what's going to be exposed is whatever is in or laying near the surface of that sandbox. We all can agree, whether you are religious or whether you are scientific, both camps basically have a story about a giant flood. Now, some people feel that this flood was local to a certain part of the world. Other people say it was the entire world, or other people say at different points, different parts of the world flooded considerably. So, if that's the case, then that would move layers of sediment off of these things, and you would see them exposed just as you would anything else that's buried in sediment and sand and dirt. So, you know, I don't know what you see when you look at this. And then you even look at these little points coming off of it, just like you see with crabs and other things. You know, it's where did these things come from? I have no idea, but I believe that we have much more land on this world than we have been told. And when you talk about the world, people always say, well, pilots would have known if we had more land. No, pilots wouldn't, because if you've ever been in the cockpit of a plane, a pilot isn't looking out the window flying. He's flying by instruments. He's flying by readings. He's flying by navigational tools. He's not looking out the window flying to Japan saying, okay, we need to make a, like, hold on, let me look out the window. We need to make a left right here. And so pilots flying in straight lines. They fly from, from here to here. They fly from here to here. They fly from here to here. They don't fly in circles and everything. So they fly from one point to another point, then from one point to another point, one point to another point. So to say that pilots should be able to know what the entire layout of our land is, I just don't agree with that. I think some of the military may know, and I think that some of these space agencies may know more than we know as far as what our actual land is and what it looks like, and how much more land there could be, because it's not hard to hide land from humans. It's really not. And I mean, I don't know why people think that a guy in New Jersey who's been shown the globe knows all of these continents is all of the continents that there is, all of these land masses is all of the land masses there is, because some guy or an institution told them. Well, who told that institution? Who prints the books for these institutions? Who prints the books for these schools and everything? So you have to kind of look at it a little more than just, well, we've been given information, so the information we've been given is right because it's the information that's been given to us. And that doesn't make sense to me. Man is very treacherous. Humans are very conniving, and groups of humans are even worse. So you can have groups of scientists, you can have groups of uh, archaeologists, you can have groups of people, and they've dedicated their lives to a mode of thinking, and anything outside of that mode of thinking has to be wrong, because it can't be any other way than the way some people see it. So when you look at this, ladies and gentlemen, I know you see something organic. I know you do. I see it and you see it. Now, what we can say is that this is just how the land made this stuff, and so we can disregard it. And we can say that this is how volcanoes made this eye right here. Volcanoes made these veins all over this face. Volcanoes made this teeth. Volcanoes made this horn, and water and wind, made everything else on this creature. We could say that, oh, wind and water did this, and it just happened to shape this thing like that. So if that's what some people want to say, that's fine, you know. But I know when I look at these parts, I know I'm looking at something. I do. I don't know about you. I know that I'm looking at something. I know that um, when I see this, I know what I'm looking at. I know that I'm looking at something that at one point was alive. I'm pretty sure it's not alive anymore. I don't know. So yeah, this is it. What is that? What is that? And then again, like I said, look at this little thing, and look at the angler fish, and look at deep sea fish, luminescent deep sea fish. A lot of them have these little hanging things off of them and by their mouths and everything, so that other fish can come and they can, attack it or grab it or whatever. I don't know if this is a hand. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it came from. I don't know where the rest of its body's parts are. But this is not just water moving and volcanoes and hot vents coming off of the ocean floor forming this. This is the impression of something. Either it's there now and we're looking at it, or it left this impression and it I guess somehow fossilized, and this is what this is what you see. So I'm not gonna, stretch this out anymore. Of course, I've got more coming for you, and I appreciate you for stopping by. So just take a look at it, and you know, it could be nothing, but then again, it could be something. All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.